Nothing says spooks, scares, and frights more than Disney? Whoa, hold on. Stay with us on this one. Halloween is that time of year where you're supposed to fill yourself full of frights and candy.
But we're big fans of Disney. We all grew up on the parks, the TV shows, and the movies. They give us great family-friendly entertainment that even little kids feel safe with.
But for every 3 Peter Pan rides, there's a haunted mansion. Every so often, they like to creep us out and make us jump out our skin.
Here are 5 times that Disney scared the pixie dust out of us on the screen when we were either kids or today.
So, show of hands, who here doesn't like Pirates of the Caribbean? You're a fucking liar. As a kid, it was a chance to live out a fantasy of being a scallywag aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge with Blackbeard, all while singing along to the catchiest goddamn song this side of It's a Small World. As an adult, the ride was a respite from the god-awful summer heat of Florida, and the chance to live out a fantasy of being a scallywag aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge with Blackbeard, all while singing along to the catchiest fucking song this side of It's a Small World. So, imagine our surprise when the Pirates film was announced. This is out of the blue. No one knew this was coming. All we knew was that there was going to be some feature films made based on the rides in the Disney parks. And of course, all we'd experienced to this point was the Haunted Mansion. But when the Pirates film was announced, I gotta admit, I got a bit of a touch of the vapors. The anticipation was high. And when I saw that first teaser, with the legs of the dead walking under the water, I was hooked. In the film, there's hints of the Curse of the Aztec Gold before we get the full money shot. But when Captain Hector Barbossa steps into the moonlight as Elizabeth Swann backs out of the captain's quarters, utters the phrase, "You best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one!" I quite literally clapped and whooped in the theater. You see, Pirates to me is the quintessential Disney scare. It's easy enough to watch with your family, but just creepy enough to satisfy the demented fucking adult in you. And I mean zombie pirates, an amazing performance from Jeffrey Rush and Johnny Depp, an eyeball that pops out and is popped back into an eye socket repeatedly throughout the film, and an undead monkey. This is the picture-perfect, quintessential, ultimate version of Disney Imagineering in an excellent feature film.
Hard to believe that some people have trouble discerning between the 2 iconic ducks of the cartoon case, because it's not even sorta difficult. Telling Donald Duck from Daffy Duck is as easy as telling the difference between a bottle of Prozac and a straitjacket with a bite guard. While Daffy has momentary fits of hyper-dramatic greed and just being generally extra, Donald... See, let's talk about Donald. Let's talk about Donald because I'm not sure Huey, Dewey, and Louie were his first set of nephews. See, whatever this cat, duck, has got going on can't be fixed with meds, good whiskey, or spicy pinups of Daisy Duck. Whatever Donald's problem is rooted deep and powerful enough to make explosive, murdery hostility an acceptable response to getting his duck dick even twistier. Look at this guy. How? What made the Donald? Is it just a cursed name? Was it growing up with the old world values and pressures of his wealthy Scottish uncle? Was it his time in the Navy? The National Socialist Navy, I mean. Maybe these are the kinds of answers that bring flaming baggage with them. I don't know. Whatever the case, if you want to be asking those kinds of questions, you might want to chase down a priest to get those answers for you.
Snow White came out in 1937 as the first full-length animated feature. It set many standards that Disney follows to this day with their storytelling, but no single film has had as many frightening scenes in one single production. The first one is after the huntsman tells Snow White, who's only 14, that he was hired to cut out her heart and she needs to run for her life. In the confusion of running deep into the woods, all the trees seem to have faces and are reaching out for her. The panic overwhelms her and she hits the dirt in fear. Imagine what gave you the chills as a 14-year-old, and you may have a better understanding of what she might have gone through mentally. The next scare isn't until much later, when the queen needs to disguise herself to kill Snow White, and magics up a brew that deforms her slowly into a cackling hag. For someone who was so obsessed with beauty, she seems more concerned with murder than her own vanity. The final and most tense moment is near the end. It's storming, the queen has killed Snow White, and the 7 dwarves are looking for blood. On a high ledge, the queen is beginning to lever a large boulder onto the dwarves when lightning strikes her feet and the ground gives way. She falls off the edge with the large stone in tow. 2 vultures watch and slowly swoop down. probably just to slurp up the queen goo that remains.
I want to talk now about the Runaway Brain. If you've seen the Mickey Mouse short Runaway Brain, congratulations! You're one of the chosen few. Granted, you can find varying degrees of quality versions of the short on the internet fairly easily, but Disney wants you to forget it exists. Unless, of course, you happen to attend the premium event, Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, when they always roll out at least one pin, t-shirt, or plush every year. If there's one thing Disney does well, it's learning from Mel Brooks. Merchandising, merchandising, merchandising. Released in 1995, the shirt was both a blessing, as it received an Academy Award nomination, and a curse, as it would be the final theatrical short featuring Mickey Mouse for almost 20 years. That's right, we didn't see Mickey in a theatrical short until 2013's Get a Horse. Audiences on it were split. Rightfully so, too. I mean, this is a major departure from the family-friendly version of Mickey Mouse they were familiar with. Mickey, desperate to earn $999.99 for an anniversary present that he forgot to buy for Minnie, decides to sign up for a mad scientist, and gets his brains scooped out by Dr. Frank and Ollie, and those brains are placed inside the hideous monster Julius. Where do Julius's brains go? Inside Mickey's body. You can imagine the wacky hijinks that happen from there. What really did this for me, though, was the amount of pop culture references and homages to classic horror. Mickey starts out by playing a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs video game that looks like Mortal Kombat. The plot, of course, is a dumbed-down, happier version of Frankenstein, but you can recognize it based on the story beats and stuff like that. And Dr. Frank and Ollie references Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, two of Walt's 9 old men from the old animator's pool. But the real money shot is when Mickey shows up at Dr. Frank and Ollie's laboratory, with the imagery mirroring Father Merrin's arrival at Reagan McNeil's house in the seminal horror film The Exorcist. To me, the only thing that would have topped this would have been if Mickey blew pea soup chunks all over Dr. Frank and Ollie before the short wrapped.
The most I can say of this cult live-action Disney film from a time before even The Black Hole, and watching it now as an adult, is that, wow, those effects, though primitive by today's standards, were damn near stratospheric for 1959. And that's predating the special effects innovations introduced by Star Wars roughly 2 decades later. But as a kid, the takeaway from bearing witness to the on-screen exploits of the Darbs of the Gills ran a tune similar to this. What the fuck? Get the fucking sick of it! So, considering that, I'd like to take these minutes to run down what your typical first grader knows about ghosts. That A, they're dead, so you can't kill them, but you know they don't eat people or murder you because that's not a workable agenda for dead things. But you're still scared of them, so simple first grade logic dictates that they must be capable of doing something way fucking worse than either one of those other two things. But, again, the good thing is that they always live in haunted houses and never leave because ghosts are, too old to drive. Except this fucking banshee, who's always at her head with a comb, because if you're gonna make retired stablemen shit themselves, you ought to look your best, especially when visiting. That 500 thread count last knows where you live, Darby. Aside from the obs, this sucks, cause you can't chase her off without having to look directly into her good eye socket. And she ain't big on conversation either, opting instead to scream in your fucking face until you're a reminder of your good Irish pitching arm.
Those were just 5 things when Disney gave us the frights. Thank you for watching. There's a little matter I forgot to mention. Beware of hitchhiking ghosts. They have selected you to subscribe, like, and comment on what you've seen today, or else they'll haunt you until you return.